Hello, welcome back to Tayrock Rockwell, the podcast. I am your host, Taylor Rockwell, and welcome back to yet another episode. However, in this episode, I want to talk about a rebrand for the podcast. I have decided, if you listen to my last podcast, that some of my episodes relating to Tayrock Rockwell, the podcast, didn't necessarily feel like me and didn't necessarily align with who I am stepping into anymore. And even though I love the podcast so much, I just think it's time for a little rebrand. We're in season 3. I've been doing this for a couple years now, and therefore I've been thinking about ways that I want to redo this podcast and be more intentional about the content that I create on this podcast, not necessarily just my experience, thoughts, and feelings, and business advice. That was the biggest thing on Tayrock Rockwell. It was just mostly business advice. And as you know, I kind of was talking about in the last episode that I'm trying to steer away from that persona, and I'm trying to really embrace who I really feel who I really am, and really start being a more efficient product of who I want to be, who I'm becoming, and who I am. So with that being said, welcome to my rebrand, season 3. I've been thinking of some names, and I'm thinking maybe Run with Tayrock. What do you think? Run with Tayrock. However, the only problem with that one is I think it's, it'd only be for people who run. And, as much as my audience is obviously running audiences because I make running content, I still like the aspect of being able to share my personal journey with my audience on more of an intimate level, on a way that they can get to know me more personally. So with that being said, I'm thinking maybe rebranding it to Run It with Tayrock. Because Run It with Tayrock, because my channel, as you know, is called Today with Tayrock. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I have a video version of it on YouTube, and that channel is called Today with Tayrock. And if you're watching on YouTube, hello, Today with Tayrock. So I feel like the podcast will be like Run It with Tayrock. It gets my SEO to have the run, and it is more inclusive to my running audience because they know obviously I run, and also the Run It is more like a, like run it. I don't know how to explain it. Like, let's run it, and kind of can be more diverse in the sense of talking about subjects that resonate more with the journey that I'm on currently. I'm also wanting to bring on more guests, so we could be like, let's run it with Lokai, with the guest, or if I have a co-host. I've been thinking about having a co-host, but I haven't found the right person just yet. So anyway, that's kind of the rebrand, but that's not what this entire episode is about. So before you get bored, please don't click out. I'm just letting you know that if you start hearing my intro say, welcome back to Run It with Tayrock, I'm your host, Taylor Rockwell, you know what's happened. That's my quick little introduction on the Today with Tayrock and the Tayrock Rockwell and the Run It with Tayrock brand. I'm going to niche down. I'm going to make an intro. I'm going to redo the podcast art. I have a lot of ideas, but I don't want to just make it and put it out there too soon. I really want to sit and make sure it resonates with what I am doing, and that it, will stick and not have to be changed again later. So with that being said, let me just fully introduce myself. I am almost at 10,000 subs on YouTube. Yes. So I'm almost at 10,000 subs on YouTube, which means I have a lot of new faces and a lot of new subscribers and a lot of new people who are just meeting me for the very first time. So let me say hello. I am Taylor Rockwell. Most people, and actually everybody, calls me Tayrock. Taylor Rockwell. It's easy to remember, so please feel free to adopt the nickname very, very early on. With that being said, I wanted to kind of talk about my running journey as well in this podcast, because a lot of people have been saying to me, I really like that you've been getting into running and it's cool that you are, starting to run. And I think it's interesting for me as an adult to hear that feedback, because in my head, I'm like, well, I've always ran, but I never made it my entire personality, I guess. So I kind of wanted to talk about the history of how I started to run, which is kind of funny. So just wait till you hear it. And also, why I'm running today, where I see my running journey progressing into, and why I feel like it's important for somebody who, if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm not a runner, I'm not going to be interested in this podcast, hold up. You still will be, because it's kind of like a mind, body, soul, self-fulfilling, self-evolution thing that running resonates with me, and I want to share it with you. So even if it's not running that resonates with you necessarily, it could be something as simple as like maybe it's going to the gym, or maybe it's like baking, or maybe it's cleaning houses, or whatever it is. We're gonna be talking more about the full circle of mind, body, soul, evolution, mindset, evolving, manifesting, etc. It's not just gonna be running, except for me, the gateway that I use is through running. So that's gonna be the main topic of which I talk about on this podcast, but I encourage you to stay and just kind of put in whatever it is you resonate with in the blank for running. If you listen to my last episode, I talked a lot about how I felt like I was being somebody that I truly wasn't. And it's not that I wasn't that person. It wasn't like I was having imposter syndrome. It's more like I created a character that I felt like people would like, and it felt tedious and almost as if it was a chore to try to upkeep that character. And so my goal with this rebrand on the podcast is like, no character. I don't want to be a character. I don't want to mold into somebody I'm not to potentially please or, be 100% inclusive to everybody. Sometimes I feel as if I was reserved on sharing my opinions on things, or I was reserved on, speaking out on things that I believed in, because I wanted to be inclusive to all. But then I felt like I was doing myself a disservice by essentially not sharing who I really am and just trying to be a character that has no opinion and has no place to speak their opinion. So, not to get all sappy, but for me, my goal with this podcast is to be more honest and to be more authentically myself, and to show my personality more in a way that is organic and doesn't feel like a chore to have to come and show up for. So that's kind of the main reason for this rebrand, is I just kind of want a fresh start, to not have to uphold the standards of Tayrock Rock'n'Well podcast, and I kind of want to just start over with the same audience, and obviously welcome new guests into this podcast, and just be more of myself, and so you can really get to know me on a personal level. So to get back on topic, who I am, Taylor Rockwell. I am also married to Jack Rockwell. He's the one who gave me the cool last name to be able to have the Tayrock brand. Before I was Taylor Johnson, which as soon as I tell people that, they're always like, oh, you got an upgrade in the last name. And I'm like, I know. So that is me. I'm currently 25 years old, and I am turning 26 December 7th of this year. And on December 8th, I am running a marathon, which is 26 miles. So I feel like it's like my golden birthday to run a marathon. 26 miles on your 26th birthday. How perfect is that? So that is really why I am training for a marathon currently, is that I initially wanted to do the San Antonio half marathon. However, when I realized it's one day after my 26th birthday, I feel like I'd be doing myself a disservice not running 26 miles on your 26th birthday. Like, hello? So that is the main reason why I got into signing up for a marathon. More about me is, yes, this podcast used to be very business related. The reason why is because I'm really interested in real estate. I like real estate a lot. I I like having rentals. I have a few Airbnbs and they do really well in San Diego, California. So I have a lot of fun doing that. However, my mission used to be like, let me teach as many people as I can on how to invest in real estate. And I think that's kind of where the disconnect of like, ooh, I'm not necessarily passionate about this for making it my entire identity. I kind of just something it's good at. It is a big part of who I am, and I'm willing to share that advice and experience with people. However, I'm not willing to make my entire online presence about it anymore. So that's kind of the shift of what has happened. I do have my real estate license and I do currently work in the real estate industry, and I have a business degree in entrepreneurship and a minor in marketing from MSU Denver. So that is a little bit about me. This is Lokai. She is my firborn and she sleeps about 95% of the day. But she keeps me good company and she still keeps me on my toes. So I also have another dog named Lilo. Anyway, not to get all ramble-gambly, let's talk about the running journey and why I'm kind of like, oh, why has it been consuming my life all of a sudden? And am I in a quarter life crisis still? And what's going on? Let me give like a full update. How did I get into running? So this is what's kind of funny. I got into running because I was dating a boy. I was dating a boy my freshman year of high school, and he was running cross country. I think as a punishment from his parents because he got into some trouble and they were like, that's it. You need to be in sports. You need to be running cross country. So he got into cross country. And I was dating him at the time. And I am a soccer player. So I played soccer literally since I was 3 years old. So I was 18 years old. And I played almost every single season, the spring, summer, and fall. The cross country was such a short season that I wasn't playing soccer within those 2 little months. And I was able to run cross country. So my motive to run cross country was mostly to do it with my boyfriend at the time. So that is what introduced me to running. Wow, I know. So I started running cross country in high school. And knowing what I know now about running, there is no way I would count that as experience. No offense to like my running coaches at the time, but they really had no idea what they were doing. They literally would just be like, pick a random distance every day and be like, see that pole over there? Go run to it and back. And that was our practice. There was really no running techniques, how to recover. There was no like why you should do short distances and then long distances and then short, and like there really was no strategy there. It was really just like after school, let's just run around the neighborhood until we're tired and call it a practice. So even though I was running in high school, I don't necessarily consider that to be my good experience with running in terms of creating a lasting technique. That was really that. But because I started running cross country, I think I started to at least be able to run 5Ks really easily and resonate with the idea of being able to run distance instead of like track where they're running sprints all the time. And so when I was running cross country, then I just kind of became a runner. In college, I would run to work out. It was mostly just one of those things I did casually, like maybe once or twice a month, just go on a run in my neighborhood, whatever. So let's get to current day then. How did I go from being a casual runner who just signed up for cross country because her boyfriend who was in trouble had to sign up for cross country, to running a marathon this year? What happened within that gap? And I shared on a podcast 2 podcasts ago my experience running a half marathon. In that episode, I talked about how my mother signed up for a half marathon and that I was just so like in awe of her. I was just like, I seriously have never seen her. I was so happy. I'm going to cry just thinking about it. I was so happy that she did that, and I was just happy to support her. And then I also was motivated to sign up for the half marathon myself. I signed up for my half marathon a whole year before my half marathon actually was supposed to take place. Within that year, especially if you listen to the last podcast, I talked about how I was really sad that year and how I was coming out of a sadness, and now I'm in a much, much better place to be creative again, to be myself, and to really open up and work towards who I want to be in the future. I don't know how to say it lightly, but running the half marathon seriously was the best experience of my entire life. When I crossed that finish line, tears just overwhelmed me. I was so happy. I didn't think I was gonna cry. Why would I think that? I was just like, oh, it's all fun crossing the finish line. As soon as I crossed, just this like crazy amount of like energy just flew through me, where I was just so happy. I was like happy, prideful, emotional, like I just felt this overwhelming sense of self-love. I think that's what it was, where I was just like, holy shit, I just love you, girl. Like, I was so happy. And in that happiness, I think I created something of like, why was I so emotional? And I really feel as if that was a monument or a physical date that I could trace of like the past is behind you, like all the things that you've been working for, trying to heal from, all the experience of being like sad that I wasn't being the person I wanted to be, kind of had like a definitive closed door, and I can just see the new door opening. Like I was just like, that is behind you and we have new doors ahead of you. And it's really an addicting feeling. And once I didn't have a race to train for anymore, I was kind of like bored, or I started to get maybe a fear and anxiety that if I didn't have anything to work towards anymore, something to look forward to or something to train for, that I was going to fall into old habits of becoming sad or overly anxious, or just the old habits that I was experiencing last year. So I think that is initially what prompted me to like hurry up and sign up for another race so that I wouldn't fall into that trap. Now that I have a race now in 5 months, I've been training the last 4 weeks for this marathon. So I'm giving myself a full 6-month period to train for this marathon. And in that, I'm realizing there's a lot of beauty in training for a marathon. And not only am I realizing it within myself, but as my running community grows bigger, as my audience grows bigger and people are reaching out to me about races that they're running, why they signed up for races, how they got into Ironman, and they're explaining all these things to me, it's starting to make me realize that we all have something in common. And I can't speak for everybody who runs these races, obviously. Look at this. It's an electric lighter. Isn't that cool? Okay, anyway. I can't speak for everybody as to why they run marathons. But I will say that there's like a common theme amongst all of us. And the common theme is that it's like a self-love. It's a pride thing that makes you feel something bigger than yourself. You're doing something for yourself, and it's the ultimate way to have self-love, to put yourself forward. It's down to everything you do in life when you sign up for a race is part of training. It's like you now are more focused on what you're eating because you want to be properly fueled for your next run that you're running tomorrow morning. You want to be sleeping better because you want to have good sleep for energy to run. You suddenly are wanting to look at your busy schedule of how many miles and hours you're running this week and be like, how do I want to spend the time in between? Obviously, a portion of it goes to work. Obviously, a portion needs to go to family, friends, yourself, reading books. Like, it starts to make you really prioritize what's important and not just lay around all day on the couch. Now, don't get me wrong, I still have those times. However, when I'm laying on the couch just becoming like a potato and just watching Netflix for 3 hours, the difference between then and now is that I'm being intentful with my time on the couch. I know it sounds silly, but what I mean is like, I had such a long week. I am so crazy. I'm so overwhelmed that for the rest of the night, all I have left to do is just sit on this couch and watch my favorite show. And it's the intent behind allowing myself to do that doesn't make me feel guilt or bad about myself, or in the morning feel like I have to do it again, because actually in the morning we have a 6-mile run ahead of us. We have to go to work. We have to be productive. We need to be working towards our goals. In my case, I'm always trying to make video content, which is, as of right now, just a really big hobby of mine, and it still takes up a lot of my time in in between training and my career and the Airbnbs and still spending time with my family, those things have made me feel like, okay, it's all about intent. And when you sign up for these races, it really starts making you be intentful with your time and really zero in on what made you want to sign up for a race and, what's going to get me through the training period to actually get me to my race. So with that, if you are not signed up for a race, I encourage you to sign up for one, even if it's just a mile or a 5K race, or it's just, starting out as walking and eventually jogging to eventually being able to run. And just, I guess what it really is just having a goal and then creating a training plan to be able to achieve that goal, whatever the goal is, whether it's running related or not. For me, I have found that having the goal relating to running allows me to also put in all the other goals that allow me to be aligned within myself, such as how I spend my time. So when I spend my time working, it needs to be intentful. When I spend my time resting or binge watching Netflix, it needs to be intentful. I also notice when I'm strength training, I'm very focused on going a lot slower, going a lot more deeper in my movement, and really making sure I'm actually working out, not to just burn energy and burn calories, but to really become a stronger version of me. And I'm just feeling like the world around me is starting to just feel different. And it's just this reality that I'm living in that makes me feel more fulfilled and makes me feel more purposeful with my actions. So I'm not saying the only way to achieve that is to sign up for a race, but I am saying that when you think about your goals, and especially for me, I used to have these big vision boards and they would overwhelm me. They'd make me feel like I don't even know where to start because we have so many places to go and so many things to do that it would make me feel stagnant and unproductive. Stagnant and unproductive. There's nowhere to go when you're stagnant and overwhelmed. So really what I guess I'm trying to get to is like, find it in you. What is the goal you want? What is the thing you always wanted to do? Like, do you want to run a marathon? I don't know. Do you want to run a half? Do you want to open a shop? Do you want to write a book? Do you want to open a business? Do you want to become, I don't know, a stay-at-home parent to stay with your children? Like, what is the goal that makes you feel fulfilled? And then making that goal, putting a definitive timeline, like by this day, I will be achieving that goal. And then creating a training plan to get to that goal, and makes you become more intentful on how to get to your goal. And I'm realizing that that's kind of my little secret that I've been figuring out, because I have off days. I have days that I don't feel like running. I have days that I am obviously sad or something happened where I'm feeling anxious. Like, all those things are normal. However, what I'm realizing that having a definitive date of like December 8th is when I'm running my marathon makes me realize that, like, even though I feel this way today, December 8th is still coming and I still need all of these days to train. So I give it to myself to allow myself to be like, yes, I'm sad and I don't really want to run, but just go out there and just do it. And there's been days where I just haven't been able to just go out there and just do it. And then I don't beat myself up and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not a runner anymore because I can't stay true to my marathon running. It's like, no, you missed that date. It's like, just get on to the next date. Like, keep true to your plan. Like, just keep going. That's how sometimes I feel with my YouTube channel. Is a lot of the times I'm like, okay, every single week we need a new episode. We need a new video. And life happens, and sometimes my videos aren't ready on time. Sometimes I hadn't had the time to sit down and record, let alone sit down and think about the thoughts that I'm feeling that I feel are worthy of sharing with my audience. And so those things can make me feel overwhelmed, because not only do I need to come up with a concept, I need to video it, I need to edit it, I need to write a description, I need to upload it, I need to put it on all my platforms. Even though that's my hobby, I make sure to allow it to be a hobby and not something that stresses me out or makes me feel overwhelmed and makes me feel like I have to do this. For me, I want to be consistent on my channel because I want to continuously create content that resonates with my audience and that my audience has consistency and can depend on me. However, I don't want to make the hobbies and the things that I like in life to become my work. And I think that is a mistake that I have made before, especially in real estate, is that I liked real estate so much that once I started to make it too much of my life and my daily self, everything I did depended on that, I started not to enjoy it as much. And that is exactly what I'm trying to preserve in my hobbies, such as running, such as content creation, such as podcasting. And so, I don't know, I kind of got off on a weird little rant, but I guess what I'm saying is I really think having a goal and being able to stick to it and come up with a plan on how you're going to get there, even with the ups and downs, and, not being hard on yourself, not making it your self-identity that, like, if you don't reach it on a certain amount of time or you're not being 100% perfect on your training plan, then, somehow you're damaged or whatever. Like, somehow you're not worthy. Just keep pushing past. Easy breezy. Just keep pushing past. Just be happy. Just be who you are. Just be a human. Enjoy the experience on getting there. Because really, when you think about it, when it comes down to running a marathon, on December 8th, I'm going to run a marathon. But it's not that day specifically that's going to be my goal achieved. Yes, it's going to happen. However, it's really the last 6 months that took me to be prepared to be willing and able to run a marathon on December 8th. It's always, I think there's like a quote. It's something like, it's like not the destination, it's the journey. What is it? It's like, I don't know, something along the lines of like the destination, aka the marathon or the goal, isn't necessarily what to enjoy. It's the journey on how you got to your marathon or your goal. So that is my advice and my little kiki moment with you. What goals are you having for yourself? Where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself in 6 months? If you were like me a year ago, coming out of a kind of a dark little stagnant place, I encourage you to just make a goal, even if it doesn't seem super close or attainable right now. That just forces you to start taking action steps to get closer to where you want to be. So I think that's a good little transition between the rebrand. I talked about why I want to rebrand, and it's because I felt like Tayrock Rockwell wasn't exactly resonating with me, who I am today, anymore. And right now I'm really into running, but I still want to be very honest with my experiences. So I think I'm going to call the new podcast Run It with Tayrock. And I want to have guests on, and I want to have maybe even a co-host, but nonetheless, I really enjoy having these conversations with you specifically and just being able to be myself. My goal is to just be myself and have more fun. And I think it's really going to shine through because even sitting down, being myself now and just being not 100% perfect and talking in a free flow really does allow me to feel closer to myself and, more authentic with my audience. So I think that's important to just kind of know and what to expect moving forward. It's going to be Run It with Tayrock, but I'm still going to be talking about current things, but it's going to be more lifestyle in terms of running and achieving those goals. So yes, nonetheless, thank you so much for listening to this episode, the first episode of Run It with Tayrock. If you're on YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, also leave me a review. If you like this podcast, and share it with a friend if you think it would be beneficial for them to listen to as well. I'm growing this community. It's getting bigger and bigger, and the more people that start reaching out makes me realize that I'm not just talking to a wall. I'm talking to real people with real goals and real admiration, and people who actually are taking my words, interpreting them for their own experiences and their own reality and letting it flourish. And so when you guys share that experience with me, it makes me feel more empowered to keep sharing. So not saying you have to share with me, but it's nice. Yes, and I think that's all I have for you today. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being patient. Thank you for allowing me to just be myself. And I am really happy to be here. Lokai's happy to be here. And we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.